I call the August 13th work session of the Portsmouth City Council to order. And Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mrs. Lucasberg.
Here.
Mr. Moody.
Here.
Ms. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Dr. Whitaker. Mayor Rowe.
Here. Dr. Pat.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. The public work session this evening will begin with a visual review of some of the fire, rescue, and emergency services, public safety, new equipment that now complements the department in the delivery of services to our citizens. In the FY18 budget, a total of 29 pieces of equipment to include fire engines, ambulances, ladder truck were purchased. Upon returning to City Council conference room after our visual review, we will continue the presentations for this evening. With your concurrence, we will move to the elevators and our fire, rescue, and emergency teams downstairs waiting for us.
First floor.
All the way up first floor and out on the stairs.
Okay.
Yes.
All
Past
right.
the treasurer's office. Go out that way. Okay.
We're changing our venue.
Yes. The chief can tell them we're on our way out.
It'll be all right.
We're back in order here. Dr. Pat.
Yes. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, the first presentation, Chief Jim Hoffler will provide an update of the service delivery of the Portsmouth Fire Rescue and Emergency Services Department. Our second presentation is a part of the city's comprehensive transportation planning efforts. The planning department will lead the development of a bicycle and pedestrian master plan that will serve to enhance and improve the city's bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and opportunities across the city. Mr. Carl Jackson, Manager of Transportation, will provide an overview of the project with the PowerPoint presentation that will have our first embedded video to help explain various components of the project. And our last discussion this evening will be the new zoning ordinance engagement, a request made by members of City Council to the city manager's staff and the city clerk, and the mayor will lead the discussion on that matter. Chief Hoffler.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Simmons, members of council, Dr. Patton. Thank you so much for your time, for coming down stairs and take a look at all that wonderful equipment that we have. It's a joy to see those great people we have out there on all that new equipment, and a little bit of that is contained in this slideshow to kind of show you a little bit what we've been doing over the last year. Just a little bit of overview as we'll talk about our responses, our emergency management a little bit, support services, and some of the regional things that we're doing. Last year, or 2017, total of 18,000 calls, 360 were fires. Most of them, as you can see, emergency medical calls. So the equipment that y'all allocated for us, automatic defibrillators, which are on all fire department vehicles now, the LifePak 15s, the monitor defibrillator pacer, and the Lucas devices on our EMS vehicles, they're getting a lot of use. Other instances we have service calls, alarms, we call them smells and bells. Somebody smells something and our bells go off. Over 4,000 of those type of calls. It could be anything from a squirrel in a wood stove to a life-threatening issue of carbon monoxide. Our fire prevention and life safety business inspections, we over the last year had hired part-time fire inspectors just to do commercial occupancy inspections, and we've increased our commercial occupancy inspections by 47%. Along with our community outreach, we have our youth academy. We just graduated the other day, and on Friday we have our fire safety curriculum that's in all of the elementary schools, and then of course we staff special events at the waterfront and at the amphitheater and other issues, as well as going to civic events and civic league meetings. We partnered with the Red Cross last year and put in about 100 smoke detectors out primarily in the Cradock and Prentice Park neighborhoods, as well as we are getting ready to buy 1,000 ones for our department now to start another saturation program in targeted neighborhoods. Our cancer prevention, a big part of what we talked about a lot over the last year has been cancer prevention for our firefighters who have an abnormally high amount of incidence of cancer and exposure to cancer. It's primarily from all the hydrocarbons, non-organic things that burn in a home these days or in a building. You see the dark black smoke, usually that's plastics that are burning. Our new turnout gear that we have, Our new turnout gear, second set of turnout gear, allows our firefighters, once they are exposed to smoke and these high hydrocarbon fires, to come back to the station, remove that gear, and get it in a decon and into a extractor washer. Now they have a second set of gear to put on immediately, where in days gone by, up to recently, we came back and we caught another fire right behind that. We had to redon that equipment that had the carcinogens in it. By buying us that second set of turnout gear, it's really going to help out. We're kind of very curious to see our new rookie class that got out. They will never know a fire department. They only had one set of gear. These kids will have had 2 sets of gear their whole career. And we hopefully will lower the incidence of cancer that we see. Our new lockers that are in all fire stations now have been installed. They protect our turnout gear from ultraviolet light. You can't leave it out in the sunlight because it degrades the protective qualities of the garment. These new lockers not only keep it out of the light, but it keeps it safe and secure till the people get back from a fire, can switch out and get their clean set out of their lockers. Our emergency medical gear we spoke about, you saw downstairs the Lucas device, the LifePak 15 monitor defibrillator pacer, and the automatic external defibrillator. And we bought over 30 of those, so almost every fire department vehicle, admin vehicle, all our vehicles have defibrillators in them now and can quickly reach our citizens. Y'all gave our full-time paramedics the recognition of the Public Safety Line of Duty resolution. We also, last year or so, we've been winning the Gold Award from the American Heart Association for our cardiac arrest program and our heart attack program. This year we were awarded the Lifeline Gold Plus Award for outstanding jobs that our firefighters and paramedics do on heart attack calls. And then there's a picture of the gear, and of course you saw the new apparatus outside. We bought 2 sets of everything: gloves, hoods, helmet liners, everything that those folks use out there on a fire and go into the contaminated environments. When they get back, they have a whole clean set that they can put on, and they can decon themselves and then place this dirty gear in an extractor. The extractors we're buying enough for all but one of our stations this year, so every fire station will have a specifically designed machine that takes and cleans our turnout gear. That's a commercial level machine. These are the monitor defibrillators and AEDs and all that you saw downstairs. A little bit about our EMS, emergency medical services. We had out of all of our cardiac arrests, about 26% patients who were on the scene, we got a pulse back, and 8 of those walked out of the hospital intact, which is a pretty good number. Chest pain, STEMI, that's EKG change at the LifePak 15 that you see in the lower right hand side. When EKG changes happen, our paramedics can diagnose where that heart attack's occurring, how severe the heart attack is. They can send that directly to the cardiologist, and what this does is has the cath lab ready for us when we get to the hospital. We don't stop in the emergency room anymore. Our people, with the treatments they do in the field now, the drugs they give, the medications and the procedures they do, carry you straight to the cath lab, so it cuts down on time. And when we talk about chest pains and we talk about cardiac arrest, whether you're talking about heart muscle or the brain, time is tissue. So we're looking to cut down on our times to save whether it's heart tissue or brain tissue. Our stroke performance is unmatchable by anybody in this area. Our 30 square miles work in our favor because we can get there pretty quickly, do our assessments, and get off the scene. And our on-scene time for strokes is 15 minutes, which is for everything they have to do, including carry people downstairs. That's a pretty fast pace. But we also have been recognized and called by different departments all over the country trying to figure out why our stroke rate of saves and our improvement with when they get to the stroke lab over at Maryview are so high. It's because our 30 square miles, we get them there quick, we don't stop in the ER, we go right to the stroke lab, and they do give them the medications to clear out those clots that are blocking the arteries in the brain. So we've had a lot of success with this program, and it's been studied by departments across the country, and some of our folks, I think, we're going to San Diego this year to do a presentation on our stroke program. A couple of pictures of our specialty team, folks who do auto extrication, hazardous materials, technical rescue, and that could be picking someone off the side of one of the high buildings down here, or going underground and getting someone out of a deep hole, or possibly one of the big tanks you see in the industrial areas. All these folks have been trained, they practice, they have the equipment to deal with that type of thing. We also have our Maritime Incident Response Team, or MIRT, as part of a regional team where we can take care of emergencies that are on ships and boats in the harbor. And we've been a part of that for a good long while now. And they, even though we don't have our large fireboat anymore, these folks are still at work. They still have the training, they still interface with the other teams, and we serve as part of that regional team for our maritime assets that are in the area. And that's a short overview of what we're doing. Any questions that I can answer?
Questions? Bill?
Quite impressive, Chief. Our large fireboat, we don't have that any?
No, sir. No, sir. We really didn't ever have money budgeted to do repairs and maintenance and upkeep on it, even buy the fuel for it. Then we had so many people retire who had training on it, and it was a specialized boat with the jet drives and all. It just sat and got to a state where it really, because the repairs got to be more than it was really worth, so we went forward and sold that boat.
Okay. How about with the port? Does that require a lot of specialized training as well as equipment? I know we're the response department for the ports. About everything we do nowadays, it gets back to how much money you can throw at a problem, but at the same time, there are benchmarks that we need to hit, whether you're talking about confined space or hazardous materials. A certain amount of training these folks have to have. And it even gets to our rehabilitation on fire scenes of getting our people out and decontaminated and cooled down. All these things are things that are driven by policy changes, by organizations such as OSHA and all that say you will have to do this now. And then there's also the standards, like our emergency medical. The standard of care now is to have 12 lead EKG come to your living room and send that to the hospital while you get cardiac medications and get paced in your house, so you don't have to wait for that 10-minute, 15-minute ride to the hospital. So a lot of these things are driven by best practices that are ongoing, the upgrades in equipment, technology, and we, in all those areas, keep our people trained and ahead. We try to stay ahead of the curve with it. Even with the fire growth technology and all the hydrocarbons, it's changed completely the way we fight fire. With the organics like paper and wood, we used to be able to go right in there and take care of the fire. Now we have hydrocarbon plastic-based fires that our people can get in there and the smoke will ignite on them. And it's usually a lot of smoke, and when it lights off and you're 30 feet deep in the building, even the turnout gear won't save you. So we have to be better at fighting those fires. We have to be better at predicting fire behavior and keeping our people out of these aggressive fire events. And we have to weigh that with, what are the chances we can go in there and get somebody if somebody's inside. So that's the risk we take when we go do that. Do we average a lot of calls annually over at the port?
Most of our calls at the port are for emergency medical calls, and we've had quite a few technical rescue calls. If someone in a crane runs into the crane, it seems like the crane operators
We've had to take a few of them out of the crane on our bucket ladder trucks, but we've been primarily it's auto accidents. The tractor trailers flipping over to occur on the off ramps there is what we get most of our calls to the port for, and then of course the occasional industrial accident. I'd say probably one a month at least.
Okay, thanks. Lisa.
And on the, you said decon, when they turn out gear, they have to go in and clean it. What's the process? How long does it take for the machine to take?
Yes, ma'am. Well, when they come out of the burning building now, we bring them to the side. We do a quick brush off, then we do a quick wash at the scene. Then we have them stripped. We turn fans on to blow the particulate away from them, and we have them take off the gear and decon their skin. When they have to put those dirty turnouts in a large plastic bag to be taken back to the station and put in the extractors. So, and then the extractors takes about 45 minutes to wash the gear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I say our program, other than one of our stations, that the infrastructure of the station won't support one of those washers because they're need a lot of hot water, they need a lot of electricity. We'll have by the end of the year, we'll have those extractors in every fire station.
And one last question. With, I guess, all of the upgraded equipment, has that helped us to be able to recruit people? I know it makes it easier for them to do their job, so we're finding that more people want to.
You know what's helped us recruit more people is having an atmosphere where we have been given the tools to do what we need to get our job done, and having the support of council and a great city manager. I have more people call me and say, man, I wish I hadn't gone so-and-so. I'm like, well, we're hiring experienced people, come on over. And it's very gratifying to have the support, to see people who have 10, 12, one gentleman 20 years in Virginia Beach, another one had 15 years in another department, wanted to come to Portsmouth because they heard of all the good things that are happening, and not just with the fire department, but with the city as a whole. And it's for someone who's been here 40 years as a firefighter, it's a wonderful time to be the fire chief. It's a wonderful time to be in our department and have this kind of support. And having people, I went to state fire chiefs and everybody's like, what in the earth is going on in Portsmouth? My city manager would like to holler that at you through her megaphone. But,
I enjoyed talking to you at National Night Out, so I wanted to be able to
yes,
share
ma'am.
this information.
And again, thank you for all our men and women in our department. I can't say enough of the good things y'all have done for us, and it's really, bottom line, helping the citizens, and that's what we're there for. So,
to piggyback on Councilman Lucas Burke's question, how about minority recruiting? Where we stand on that? I know at one time it was pretty low.
We've been working with that, and what we do is the process now comes from Ms. Gooden. When we do our, after we've done our entrance examination and folks get through civil service, approved by civil service, then the names go on a list, then Ms. Gooden sends me the proper, appropriate candidates, and we put them to work.
What's the percentage? You don't have it now.
I have it right here. Percentage of white males is 87%, females 12.7%, 15.9% African American, 2.4% Hispanic, and 2.4% other.
So we're improving.
Yeah, I think it's up.
It is. It's just some, not as much as we like for it to be, but again, those are our current figures.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you very much.
They are our thanks to the men and women.
And they know, and it's just gratifying to go in the fire station and see the smiles, and it's I can't thank y'all enough for the support. And Dr. Patton, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, through oversight, I did not announce the second presentation, which will be our public safety facilities update. About 3 months ago, we presented to you the study on the public safety facilities. We indicated with your questions to go back and come back to you with a review of what the study found and how we would like to recommend moving forward. The presentation this evening will look at the optimization and prioritization for the location for replacement of fire stations identified in the fire station location study, and to present the site selection options for the proposed public safety complex. I'd like to say that this study that was presented to you 3 months ago, and Mr. Wright coming back, this study looks at envisioning accomplishing what has been recommended over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but at least we are looking ahead as to where we need to go with the facilities that we have. Mr. Wright.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight, I'm going to present the Public Safety Facilities Update. As Dr. Patton mentioned, there are two topics are twofold. One is going to focus on the fire department, and the second is going to focus on the overall public safety complex. If you remember from our last presentation, the optimization of the replacement fire stations is to get us to that close to 100% service. The intent of the fire location study was to determine the best course of action for making the needed changes to the facilities that will both improve current operations and provide us facilities that will support the needs of Portsmouth fire rescue and emergency services for the next 30 to 50 years. The team, the fire department, the consultant, and the engineering department reconvened to confirm the future sites for relocation and prioritize the fire station replacements. So what you see here in red are the stations that are going to stay in place. So you have Effingham Station, Port Norfolk, Cedar Lane, and River Shore. So what you see in gray, which is Hodges Ferry, Winchester, Victory, and Cradock stations, those are proposed to move. The locations where they'll move to, most of them being old county stations, move closer to the city or the center of the city. And by doing that, your service delivery is increased. So, to optimize the location of these stations, we analyze response times, utilization rates, and other data to determine the appropriate optimal location for each station. Location should be within a half mile to 3/4 mile radius of the recommended location. I'll mind you that moving stations 7, 10, and 11 provide enhanced coverage for the truxton area. So station number 7, which is the Winchester station, the optimal location is somewhere in the vicinity of Turnpike Road and Frederick Boulevard. Station number 9 is Hodges Ferry, just east of Portsmouth Boulevard, Elmhurst Lane, somewhere near the former Long John Silver. Station number 10, the Victory Boulevard station, somewhere in the vicinity of Victory Boulevard, Interstate, and Cavalier Boulevard. The Cradock station, somewhere near the intersection of George Washington Highway and Frederick Boulevard. So, this is a prioritization for replacement. So, after much conversation between the team, station number 11, the Cradock station, was the one that was selected to be relocated first. Due to the age and condition of the existing facility, also to alleviate call volume at station number 1, which is Effingham. And there's also, because the outside of the building, the structure is actually in relatively good condition. It's the inside of the station that doesn't meet current programming needs and not in the best of shape. But you have the potential to repurpose that station for a community center in the Cradock neighborhood. Station number 10 was the second station recommended for removal after you relocate. Station number 11. And then the recommendation, after much conversation, was to see what the service delivery looked like before you decided which one of the other 2 stations you would relocate. Also, a recommendation was to do concurrent design of stations 10 and 11, at least to the 30% design level, and then move forward with completing that first station that you relocate, and let the other one sit on the shelf for a little bit. And just a little bit of background data. Station number 11, the Cradock station, opened in 1930. The Victory station opened in 1964. The station number 7 opened in 1981. Station number 9 opened in 1956. The average replacement cost for the fire stations that we looked at ranged from $4.6 million to $6.2 million. And we're looking at approximately $4.6 million to $6.2 million per station, depending on the programming and what goes into the station. And you're looking at an approximate 2-acre site for a fire station. take in mind that the replacement costs that I've just stated do not consider only consider the current programming needs. So any ancillary facilities such as storage or any type of training that would go into the public safety complex brings that number down, brings that square footage down. Any questions about the fire stations?
And that's construction cost exclusive of the cost of real estate. Is that correct?
Correct. It's design and construction, does not include real estate.
No.
Yes, sir, Bill.
We have potential sites picked out now.
We have not got that far into it to actually look for the exact sites. We will look for city-owned property or property that's available. Speaking of the Cradock station, there's a potential that we could work with the Navy and potentially site something on their property. So we're looking at all available options. There was, at one point in time, and Mr. Bolden reminded me of this earlier, there's a potential to have a joint training facility on Navy property. That fell through.
Is that where you're looking at?
We're looking at Scott Center.
That's pretty cool.
So
So the other thing we might want to look at, and that's the annexation agreement relative to public facilities.
The annexation agreement of
Right.
Cradock.
Yeah, between Portsmouth and Cradock.
Okay, Mr. Ashby's noting that. Okay.
And when you look at that, look at the applicability, I mean, whether or not the clocks run on that. The applicability, whether or not the clock has run on the agreement.
All right. Okay.
I mean, that's a good point, because it can become a concern of the community if they think that they were promised something.
Yes.
And so it's important for us to address that up front.
Yeah, and that's why I bring it up, because I know in the past, relative to different potential moves like the library, that's come up. I don't know that we've ever had an opinion on that, whether that agreement is in perpetuity or did it have a sunset clause.
We will look at all of that.
I think that's extremely important.
You're calling something to our attention that neither the city attorney nor I had ever given any thought to.
And you might want to look and see if there's one for the annexation that took place in the 60s when Churchland came into the city.
Okay. We'll look at all of the annexations that have taken place to see what were the sweetness.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I will tell you, when we had the initial discussion with regard to even the shipyard services, and I want to say that was more than 12 months ago, I did spend some time in the local history, is that the proper term, section of the library. And it was very enlightening. As soon as I walked in, a young lady handed me about 3 different documents that gave me all of the history of Portsmouth when it was about 4 blocks wide and 4 blocks long here, and laid out all of the, in 5 books, the annexation and how the city grew from one end to another. So we have picked up that discussion initially in part to determine what are the deed restrictions as they relate to the Norfolk Naval Shipyard, first and foremost, but that is part of an ongoing assessment of all the governmental properties, the federal properties that are within our jurisdiction, but it is also provide some insight into terms of how the city grew and how those annexations came into play.
Mr. Ashby and I have even started the discussion of Craney Island 150 years from now.
Certainly.
How do we position it that whomever is here, that becomes a part of Portsmouth? Although it's, we look at our water and how it has benefited us 100 years later, we know that one day that land will be ready for development, and we'd like to see it in and used by Portsmouth. So we're thinking along those lines.
So now we're going to talk a bit about the site selection for the public safety complex. We looked at 8 locations citywide, and you see the criteria for evaluation here. We're looking for a minimum 5-acre site Most parcels would involve some sort of rezoning. Since this is a critical facility, it should not be located in a floodplain. It should have convenient access to the interstate and arterial roadways. Any drainage issues should be known and addressed, or have projects that are in the planning stage prior to locating the facility there. Other factors for consideration included development potential or interest in the parcels by other entities, the location, and potential benefits to adjacent areas. So after going through the analysis, we settled on 2 general areas. So the first area, and this is just not any specific site that we looked at, but specifically in the Victory corridor where the interstate is, there's some city-owned land between the interstate and Greenwood Drive that may be viable for a public safety complex. The cities
On that aerial, so people will know a couple of the big landmarks.
So this is the interstate. This is Victory Crossing. This is down here. There's the college. This is where interstate comes in. So this is, I think, a service. This is a service lot. The Royal Farms is here. 7-Eleven, Captain D's. Because you spend too much time in that area, maybe. So, since the city is relatively small and mostly built out, there are very few locations with adequately sized city property. So this is one of the areas that rose to the top. The second area that rose to the top is the former park and ride site right here at Greenwood Drive. Here's Lakeview Elementary. Here are the condos or apartments adjacent to it. If you go down here a little, where's Greenwood Drive? Go down here a little bit further, you run into where the Food Lion and some of the other properties are. Those, go ahead.
Are there environmental issues with that?
No, we've done a phase 1 environmental assessment at the site within the past 3 years, and a limited phase 2, and there are no environmental issues with that site.
And the total acreage is?
It's just above 5 acres. It's like 5.11. And just to give you an idea of what a public safety facility could look like, this is the Chesapeake Public Safety Operations Center. It's smaller than what our public safety complex would be, and it does not include all the functions that we will have in our building. So what you're looking at here is about a 51 square foot facility that fully integrates their emergency dispatch center, emergency operations center, their call center, some backup network operations, some fire department training, and some ancillary spaces. Like I mentioned, our site would be much bigger, but this is to show you that we wouldn't necessarily have a wide sprawling campus. We would go up, so we're looking at a potential 2 to 3 story facility and some additional training and storage on the site for our public safety complex. With that, I'll take any questions.
You go back, Mr. Wright, to where you had the specifics we must address in order to find the right site. And you know what our challenges are.
And before you mention 2, can we hear about the other 6?
There are multiple ones in that Victory corridor. I think there are 3 to 4 locations in that corridor alone. The Sportsplex was another site that we looked at. There was some property on High Street that wasn't large enough between in the Peninsula, Chestnut, that area, Elm, and that area that's city-owned or PRHA-owned. Those properties weren't big enough. Some of them have other development interest, so they sort of fell out of the mix.
Questions? Comments? Direction? Bill?
That property off of Greenwood, is that where the MSW facility was?
Yes, that's what we were looking at for the transfer station.
Right, transfer station. Is the...
It would have to be rezoned. As he indicated, the properties that we're speaking of would have to be rezoned. One of the things we do know for that property, it would have to, right now it's industrial, so in terms of development for homes or living spaces, that property will not be fitted for that.
Who owns it?
We do.
Okay.
And we've owned it since the,
HRT.
it was the HRT
Since
property. and
HRT,
it was
I
probably
didn't
part
know
of mine.
VDOT or the city. I knew
Yeah,
it was.
we owned it.
Okay.
The city owns it, and it's owned it for probably the past 20 years,
15, 20 years.
15, 20 years.
And was there a 20-year restriction on anything being built on, I guess that time limitation may have expired?
I don't think, I'm not aware if there was
I
ever
can't speak to that.
any limitations on it once the city, and that was doing, I think, Mr. We can check, but during Mr. McCoy's tenure when the city inherited that property.
Bill?
And what was the acreage requirement?
A minimum 5-acre site.
5. So that property at the Sportsplex, that wouldn't be too small, would it?
Well, it's 30 acres there.
Yeah,
right?
it's so the sports parcel is about 12
We have 10
acres,
in
and then there's another 13 or so acres that 27 total. So
There's,
Is that one of the ones under consideration?
it was one of the ones that was under consideration, but it wasn't in the primary at the top of the list at the moment. No, sir.
And why?
there's some
Because of
development
those things
interest.
up there, flood, drainage.
You go back to some of these other issues. The biggest challenge for that site, or not necessarily a challenge, that there's other interest in that site currently. So we took
you
that.
say that?
We took that.
Okay.
We took that out of. We took it out of play.
Okay.
Higher and better use.
Right.
Well, let's go around go ahead.
I'm not ready to stand up and fight yet
For any particular site.
for any particular site. However, I just want it on the record that when we start talking about all these different sites for public safety and City Hall and all of these things that we want to move off the waterfront, which I'm a big proponent of, I'm going to fight to keep some things downtown.
Oh, yes.
Our merchants, our residents need the people that come with those buildings to stay downtown. That's all I'm going to say right now.
And following up on that, you had talked about bifurcating public safety, so that you have an administrative building and an operations building.
Yeah.
And that the administrative building could be separate from operations. Is that still your thinking?
The intent is to have everything together. Right now, they have a lot of duplicate functions. For example, administrative staff that they have in different places that potentially doing the same thing, where they could combine those resources and do something different. They have training here, they have training there, training in different places, whereas if everything is pulled together, it makes for a more efficient use of their people and time and the service that they provide to the public.
Like training rooms and conference rooms and...
Yes, definitely.
Somebody have a hand up, Bill.
I think ease of access, which is one of your criteria, I think that's extremely important. I don't know a site that lends itself any better than that, than probably the Greenwood site. But I would think that would be near, if not at the top of the list.
Are you agreeing, Ray? Us?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm still pondering. This is a lot to get hit with.
Yeah. But I think it's important that we share our initial reactions with each other.
But that's, looking at the spot on Greenwood Drive, well, Victor either, but that spot, it's a good location, which, not everybody's going to respond from that location, but in a major incident, people will be responding, and that allows you anywhere in the city, including Churchland, because you can go 264 to 664 to Town Point or wherever you need to, and it's faster going around and going through the city. So I think that would be a good location to be able to cover the entire city.
Definitely has pluses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think absolutely. If you quick downtown interstate, quick Churchland, anywhere, you can get off on 168 and go in that direction.
Take the MLK up to
Yeah,
164.
take the MLK even faster to go.
Yeah.
It's like a loop. So I think it is. But I guess I'm like Elizabeth as far as trying to keep City Hall as close to downtown or in the downtown area is the preferable way, I think, for City Hall, rather than trying to move it midtown or anywhere else.
Well, we're only talking about public safety here.
I know,
Yeah.
but I heard a little conversation about sort facilities.
Well,
I didn't interpret it that way.
it's all the police functions, their training, 911 center, EOC, fire administration. This is the public safety complex, training, some storage. So this is all just public safety.
Okay, all right.
There are no other
Anything.
city entities or ever going into this facility.
Yeah, I didn't.
Hear that?
I was
Good.
reading something else into it.
Dr. Patton, you got your finger on it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I wanted to share with council that the team shares the same sentiment or concerns that you may have. As Mr. Wright said, we were looking at properties downtown because my message to the team has been, let's see what we can keep close in proximity. The Bread property that we own, immediately he said, Dr. Patton, that's not big enough. So I said, well, what about the property on the other side? Because we own that too. That would separate it. But at this time, we have interest in both of those. So that's why we have backed off. But it's not enough property that we have found that's in close proximity to do what needs to be done for our public safety.
Well, and you don't need let me rephrase that. I would assume that you need a lot more parking for public safety than you would for City Hall, just because of the
Yes.
vehicles and employees, whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Go ahead.
and there are not going to be any garaging or anything with this building.
No, sir.
Right, just so-
No.
Surface parking.
I think it would be good, and let's have a conversation on this, of getting public input. We don't want to hear the public didn't have a say. So can you devise a way that we can get public input in this process?
Yes, we can.
How do y'all feel?
That includes the fire sites.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Sure, absolutely.
Especially the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can do that, Mayor and Vice Members of Council, let you know what our plan is and how we will deliver it to our public and get engagement.
All right, other questions or comments?
I'm delighted
I prefer the
that,
Greenwood Drive property over the Victory. I mean, I would prefer, Victory over Greenwood because of the same reasons. Easy access to the interstate. It hardly ever floods because we have to pick up our staff sometimes when they flood and those roads are always high, so.
Your preference is Victory.
Preference is Victory.
I guess the
Not in
only,
Cavalier Manor.
I guess just to be clear, in reference to the Victory, I don't think there was a specific site, was it? It was just in that area. That's the only reason that I'd leaned on Greenwood, because it is a specific site. Victory was just somewhere in that corridor, and the farther you get away from 264, then that's going to reduce your response to various locations.
That's correct. There are multiple sites in that Victory area. What we can do is, once we get a little better handle on which would be the preferential site on Victory, come back to you with that information as well as more information about the Greenwood site.
Where you head, Jim?
Yeah. You know, as far as interstate goes, either place is ideal as far as interstate. I guess for space and for making sure you've got more than adequate. That Victory would be better than Greenwood. You have the possibility of maybe double the 5 acres if you looked at some of that property close to TCC or the closest to the interstate as possible. I know that corner's for sale, but
Right, we know.
I have to recuse myself.
Yeah, I was going to say, anybody we know?
but there's other parcels next to it.
Which would extend the availability.
What a rich conversation we're having.
Yeah, we
Yes,
are.
it is.
All right. Any other comments? Thank you.
All right, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Altheen Kettle, Portsmouth, developing a citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan. Mr. Robert Jackson will be our presenter.
Thank you, Dr. Patton. Good evening, Mayor Mary Simmons, members of council. It's a pleasure to bring you all.
We'll get it up for you.
Okay. It's a pleasure to bring you all an update on our process of developing a citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan. Of course, I'm sure you all are aware of all the health benefits of walking and biking. You create a healthier community as part of Dr. Patton's wellness campaign for the city. It creates a cleaner environment, reduces congestion, and it provides a means of mobility for people who may not have a vehicle or automobile. It's also been a source of tourism and economic development. Some of the facilities for walking and biking include sidewalks, crosswalks, ADA ramps, bike lanes, bike sharrows, which are basically pavement markings on roadways. They indicate that bicyclists can use the full lane. Some of these have been installed on High Street and Cedar Lane. And then there are facilities that serve both, greenways and trails. I'm sure you all are aware of the Portsmouth Rail to Trail. It's a perfect example of one. Portsmouth has many advantages that make it excellent for walking and biking. Our flat terrain, mild temperature. We have several historic walkable neighborhoods within the city, growing bike and pedestrian infrastructure. We've been nationally recognized both as a bicycle-friendly community and a walk-friendly community. And in fact, just last week, we went ahead and renewed our application for a bicycle-friendly community. So we're hoping that goes through. Other advantages, we've got great civic support. The Team Portsmouth, our cycling club, was invited to our annual Memorial Day Parade. We also have Dr. Patton's Walk and Talk has been highly successful, getting employees to walk across the city and to become healthy. And we have many planning advantages as well, too. Our master transportation plan has talked about the need for a bicycle plan in order to receive funding from VDOT for those projects. You all have approved the Portsmouth Rail to Trail, which will bring recreational opportunities to our citizens. And our current comp plan update, Build One Portsmouth, talks about providing walking and biking opportunities, not just for recreational, but for daily transit throughout the city. So with this plan, all we want to do is kind of keep the momentum going for bicycle and pedestrian planning. So working with staff, we put together a short video, so you all sit back and relax and enjoy the video. Venues like Paradise Creek Park offer miles of off-road recreational trails, but how can walking and biking be improved throughout the city of Portsmouth? A comprehensive citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan will help us to identify the location of new facilities, including sidewalks and crosswalks, which provide a safe means for citizens to cross busy roadways. More neighborhood greenways and bicycle boulevards, low-volume residential streets will allow citizens to safely ride through the city's scenic neighborhoods, avoiding parked cars and oncoming traffic. Many roadways in Portsmouth lack any bicycle accommodations and should be studied for additional facilities. Curb cuts, ramps, and wide sidewalks can provide relief to bicyclists and pedestrians. Signed and striped bicycle lanes should be more prevalent on secondary roadways. Hatched pavement markings for bike lanes can be used to help bicyclists avoid turn lanes at major intersections. Without proper signage and pavement markings, motorists and bicyclists run the risk of impacting one another. Pavement markings like bike sharrows give motorists warning that bicyclists may use the full lane for travel. The citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan will also explore creating a complete streets policy, so more of our city streets can accommodate all forms of transportation, like Crawford Street downtown. Bicycle lanes are the preferred on-road bicycle facility, but are recommended on wide, lower volume roads like Mount Vernon Avenue and Port Norfolk. Shared use paths or trails are preferred overall and provide the safest accommodation for bicyclists and pedestrians of all skill levels. For more advanced cyclists, Ramps are provided onto the West Norfolk Bridge, where there are wide shoulders permitted to be used by pedestrians and bicyclists. Additional bike sharrows on West Norfolk Road concludes our journey and will one day provide a connection to the long-awaited Portsmouth Rail Trail. Appearing similar to this trail in Suffolk, the Portsmouth Rail Trail will be a 1.8-mile paved off-road facility that will be part of the larger 41-mile Southampton Roads Trail. The citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan will also explore the possibility of bringing bike share to Portsmouth. BikeShare is a privately owned, web-based application that can be used to rent bikes on an hourly basis. This service could encourage greater bicycle use amongst residents and tourists in Portsmouth.
I had quite a workout that day making that video, but I do have to thank planning staff and marketing staff to help us to put it together, and to thank our planning director, Mr. Baldwin, who had the vision to start producing videos for our department. That's the first of many that hopefully will come. So from the video, we discovered that there are a few challenges in our community. One of which the lack of connectivity between different facilities around the city, safety concerns for drivers and cyclists within the community, aging sidewalk and bicycle infrastructure that needs to be updated, the need for community awareness and education about which facilities are available, the need to identify community participants and advocates for bicycle and pedestrian planning, and then linkages to other surrounding communities and other cities that are doing similar things. And so that's kind of what the purpose of our plan is, to address these challenges, to provide a citywide bicycle and pedestrian map, to promote community engagement. We'll have several opportunities, both with our kickoff meeting, with plan review meetings, planning commission, and for you all at City Council. We'll also create a complete streets policy. And complete streets is basically designing roadways to accommodate all users, pedestrians, bicyclists, drivers, and transit riders. And we want to assess the city's potential for a bike share program. We realize that Portsmouth is different from other communities, so we need to determine what's best for us as a city versus just copying what other cities are doing. And so here's the process, the schedule that we've solicited. We're trying to solicit a consultant. The RFP closed for that in July. We've had several proposals and responses that have come in. We expect our first community meeting to be in September or October. We're looking at a 12 to 18 month process to develop the plan, and we're targeting a draft plan by late 2019. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Bill, did you have your hand?
Yeah, a few years ago, funding through a program called ICE-T. You may remember that, John, the Surface Transportation Program. And the region kicked off with great fanfare that there was going to be a bike connector that connected Suffolk, Portsmouth, Norfolk, and specifically ODU and Norfolk State. Did that
yeah, that's currently underway. Yeah, that funding is now called FAST Act, and there's Transportation Alternative TA funding, which the city has obtained, which we're using to build the Portsmouth Rail Trail.
So that just hasn't come to fruition yet?
We're in final design, and hopefully we'll begin construction either later this year or next year on that trail. And that'll be incorporated into our plan.
Okay, terrific.
That's a rail-to-trail tie-in.
Yeah.
That's where the money is.
Yeah, that utilized a lot of the former
yes.
rail sites.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the fact that there's some confusion that bicycles are only limited to streets with a bicycle marker on it?
Okay, well, technically, the state law is that you have to share the road, every road, to bicyclists. And if you're driving in a vehicle and you want to pass a bicyclist, you have to give them 3 feet. as you're going around them. But we realize that, some cyclists don't feel comfortable necessarily, riding in traffic with other vehicles, so a dedicated bike lane just makes it safer. Share roads is kind of like an indicator to both cyclists and motorists, just to beware. And then an off-road trail is just, the best. Like our Portsmouth Rail Trail will provide just, ample opportunity for families as well, not just your, commuter cyclists to be able to use it.
So a bicycle marking really makes the motorist mindful of what they should be watching for anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the law.
Okay. Any other? Yeah, Dr. Patton?
So, Mr. Jackson, what you're saying, and follow up with the mayor, if I want to ride a bicycle down High Street tonight and be in the center of the lane with my light, in a lane going toward Churchland with my light on, cars are to respect me for being out in the road. Whereas years ago, you would say, why aren't they over on the side, or why aren't they out of the way? With the new laws that are in place within the state, the bicycle can ride down High Street as a car straight down to Churchland. What we're to do as drivers, what we're to do, give them 3 feet around and go on around them. But not honk at them and scream and tell them get out of the street.
But at the same token, bicyclists are supposed to obey the same traffic laws as motor vehicles.
That's right.
And unfortunately, they don't pay attention to that, and that just makes it dangerous for everybody.
Right, yeah.
They need to go in the flow of the traffic.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and when we install these facilities,
education to do.
That's true.
right, yeah, and that'll be part of our plan too, the education. But these facilities will be set up so that bicyclists are riding with traffic instead of opposed to traffic.
Right.
Bill?
And there's still plans for 2 bike lanes on the new Churchland Bridge. One on the new bridge and one on the...
I believe it's going to be a sidewalk and a path.
For the new Churchland Bridge, there's a separated shared use path. It's a 14-foot path on the new bridge. Since the existing bridge is just being rehabilitated, nothing's happening to the path on the existing bridge.
And that's larger than it's wider than the path on the new Jordan Bridge, is it not?
I think so.
Yeah. Well,
I think that path is only 10, where ours will be 14 because it's separated, and the one on the Jordan Bridge is not separated.
Other questions? Thank you. This has been good.
I'm ready.
All right, excellent.
Any questions, any comments? The last item is the new zoning ordinance engagement. When we had our joint meeting with the Planning Commission, we said that we wanted their input as we got into the philosophical discussions that relate to our new zoning ordinance. And we discussed this at the last meeting and asked the city manager and the city clerk to look at the calendar where we could have a series of joint meetings with the Planning Commission where we can talk about such things as when do you require a conditional use permit and when is one not required. So in that regard, can you look at your calendar for September and see what's available? Dr. Patton and Deborah looked at the 29th of September. The 29th is the day before the Virginia Municipal League has its annual conference. It starts on the 30th of September and goes to the 2nd of October. And that conference is in Hampton. And I encourage as many of you that can to go to either all or part of that conference. I mean, it's just a short commute over to Hampton. And so Deborah is ready to coordinate your registration for that. On the 29th, they have the Mayor's Institute, in which they invite the mayor and vice mayor of all the cities and towns to talk about critical issues facing local government. So as you look at your calendar, can you think too of a Thursday night? Our Monday and Tuesday nights are pretty much jammed. And personally, I'd rather give up a Thursday night than a Saturday. So look, and candidates, if you're looking at a Thursday night, are the 20th and 27th. Did I remember the calendar correctly?
That's correct.
That's right.
Okay. So let's be prepared to talk about this tomorrow night.
Okay, good.
I'm fine with either one.
Elizabeth says she's...
I will not be here on the 20th.
Okay, so that kicks it, how are you on the 27th?
27th should be fine.
Yes, fine.
27. That's two.
I'm all right.
Well, let's tentatively focus on the 27th, and we'll confirm it. You can check your paper calendar if anybody's got those.
Oh, what is that?
Then
And we also need to check with the planning commission.
Yes, please. Will you do that,
Yes.
Dr. Patton?
Yes, we
and
will.
Deborah?
So that would be the evening of the 27th.
Right.
Yes.
And we can start at, much like we did tonight.
6.
6, 5:30.
Okay.
Board meets that day, but they don't meet in here though, right?
Yes, they do.
They do.
I will double check.
She will
all of
double
that.
check it. Okay. If not, then we've got the right across the
Yeah,
hall.
we got,
Same conference room.
yeah.
We could
Let's
put
not
chairs.
let the venue,
Yeah.
we need a room
We
like
won't let the
this.
venue stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a room like this right across
Yeah.
the hall.
Right.
Right.
Thought it would be too big, but your conference room.
It's right as this. It's same as this. We just
All right.
add some
Is
straight
that
chairs.
good?
Yes.
Big.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, and you'll check with the planning commission?
Yes.
Both of you?
Yes, sir, we'll take care of it.
Mayor, did you want to mention that the November meeting is already planned, so that will be total, November 26th will be.
Thank you for reminding me. Because you brought it up, will you tell council?
Yes. There's already a pre-calendared meeting, joint meeting between the City Council and Planning Commission, and that's on a Monday night. And instead of any other items being on that agenda, it will all be zoning for the discussion. And then at the end of this month, we're saying around August 31st, both the Planning Commission and City Council will receive a zoning notebook that will have things that you need to read and study to be ready for your discussions when you come forward.
A couple of things. I don't know about you all, but I have received a lot electronic letters about matters coming before us on zoning. And would it be okay? Do you have time tomorrow that I could talk with you and your staff? And I'm saying that out loud so that if anybody else needs to talk with the city manager, you got a similar letter.
Okay.
Am I making sense?
Yes, at tomorrow night's meeting or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay, just make it available.
Am I making sense?
All right, I'm good.
So,
When you're done, Mayor,
well, I have one more thing.
Come on in.
And that's the follow-up on the discussion about downtown. And I've known this for maybe 2 weeks, that the downtown branch of BB&T plans to close. And it was, again, brought up. And there are many rumors in the rumor mill as to why. But my knowledge of banks, particularly retail banking, is that they're having the same issues that retail stores have. How to get customers into a store. Think about the last time you went into a bank. If you get paid by an employer, you most likely never see that check. It's direct deposit. Online banking, if you need cash, why go inside the bank when you can go to any ATM machine? And so banks need to be nimble and be thinking about how do you meet the electronic needs of their customers. And I say this because some people are putting a negative spin on this, that this is something, there you go again, you're driving businesses out of downtown, and it's not the city's fault. It's what's happening in the banking world.
And just an example of that is the last house that I purchased, I never even met my loan officer till after I owned the property. Everything was uploaded on my phone, took a picture, uploaded it, and never even met her in person until after it was all over with.
Okay. Solomon?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I did want to make a follow-up. There was an inquiry as to whether or not the vendors for city events are required to show proof of insurance, and that is a requirement that's enforced by the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Leisure Services. I believe Councilman Moody asked that question several weeks ago. And I know we've sent notice with regard to Cradock properties in Afton Green, but I want to make everybody aware that the grass has been cut also, if you had not heard as yet. So we're moving forward.
Say that loud.
Yeah, the grass has been cut at Afton Green. I got that report today.
Good, thank you.
We have no more items.
Well, and yes, sir, Bill.
One more item, and I think maybe working on the follow-up. Dr. Patton was the $75 for widows, widowers, retirees that we discussed. I believe that we're going to work on the feasibility of that, reference our year-end.
We are looking into several things as it pertains to that, Mr. Moody. But what I said in my budget message was that we did not give any increases or any bonuses or anything to city employees during this budget, and that we would look beginning in end of September as we get closer to the end of this fiscal year to see if there are funds that we could do some kind of something for bonus, or that's what we have called it, for city employees. The matter which you're speaking of is something of which we're looking to, or looking at as we look to 2019, and we look at different scenarios as it pertains to retirement and other matters that we've called to your attention. Okay.
And before we close, Deborah, will you send the conference registration information to each member of council?
Yes, sir.
Any other items? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Council members, in your box, we put a copy of the letter and schedule for the Boards and Commissions retreat. That's going to be on September 8th. It's going to be at Social Services in the 4th floor community room. If you could take a look at that and let our office know if you're sure you're going to be there, because we have an intricate part for the council to play that day, and we just want to make sure that we have enough representation to make it happen. Thank you.
All right. This meeting is adjourned, and we'll have another meeting at 5 o'clock tomorrow.